in to Let Me Put a List Together. I'm Brian Mitchell, along with my co-host Mark Grody. We are going to be listing again for your enjoyment. And today's topic is top rock and roll lead singers. And how many is this, Mark? How many do we have?
15, baby, 15. You want to hear the list?
Yes, I do.
Robert Plant, Bono, Jim Morrison, Eddie Vedder, Jon Bon Jovi. There is a combo platter for AC/DC. We'll put Scott and Brian Johnson together. Freddie Mercury, Axel Rose, Dave Grohl, Mick Jagger, Kurt Cobain, Chris Cornell, Steve Perry, Roger Daltry, and then we'll do another combo platter for the Beatles, and that'd be John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
You know what? I really am in the giving mood today, Mark, so I am going to let you start this list. Why don't you give me your number 15?
I'm going to go Dave Grohl,
all right,
lead singer of the Foo Fighters. And Dave Grohl is the king of modern rock. The Foo Fighters and Dave Grohl, essentially, they carry the torch right now. They are the quintessential modern rock, most popular, still highly relevant, still in heavy rotation, still people want their music. It's Dave Grohl. And I'll say a couple things about Mr. Grohl. It is a truly amazing accomplishment that he has had, going from Nirvana and all that went with that, and essentially Kurt Cobain's band and being the guy in the background, the drummer, to all of a sudden breaking out of that, the sad story and the explosiveness of Nirvana, to starting his own band, leaving the drum kit, going to the front of the band, and then just churning out hit after hit after hit. It's pretty incredible. And Dave Grohl, I don't think he is the purest, most distinct voice. I don't know that I would put him in the category of like great singer, but he's a great rock star, and it's a great band. So I'm going to go Dave Grohl at number 15.
That's good. That's a great start. And yeah, he does. He has that real husky voice. Just to piggyback off what you said, yeah, to come from a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band and then create your own Rock and Roll Hall of Fame band.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
That is an amazing accomplishment. And not only that, let's really give kudos to Dave Grohl, because he's just an outstanding human being. I mean, he's super cool. No rock star ego, none of that. I mean, he's a fan of music. He's a fan of other bands.
Amen.
And, he's always, he's very giving. And I always like to see cool stuff that Dave Grohl does on stage, where he'll bring up a little girl and she'll play drums for the Foo Fighters on a song, or a kid that plays guitar that's really talented, and he'll come up and fill in on a song. That's just really cool of Dave Grohl. And you know what? This is basically, Dave Grohl is karma. You give out love, you get love. And that is what is happening with Dave Grohl right now. So excellent start to our list. So number 15 is Dave Grohl. That was Mark's. And number 14, I'm going to pick Jon Bon Jovi. You ever notice that most of Bon Jovi's videos are them rocking in arenas? Because yeah. I think that is where Jon Bon Jovi's power is. The magnetism, the power of the guitar. All of his songs are great arena rock songs that are sung by a great frontman and need instant feedback. So when you sing like Living on a Prayer, that is an arena rock song. That is songs that are meant to be sung with other people standing next to you. Bad Medicine, It's My Life. All those songs are very powerful rock songs. And there's nobody better than to stand on a stage and rock an arena, especially in the late 80s. If you were alive in the late 80s and got a ticket to a Bon Jovi concert, there was nothing like it. He was the maestro, and they toured like crazy. They're just your quintessential working class band from Jersey. So Jon Bon Jovi, I would say, is an excellent lead singer, and I'm going to put him at 14.
That's a great spot for him, and I'll piggyback on what you're talking about. The 80s, man. The 80s was rough in terms of a lot of the hair bands and the Poisons and the Rats and the Motley Crues, and he stood amongst those guys, but didn't quite go there. They survived that era with all the bad around them, and they kind of got lumped in with them to some degree. I mean, I always thought like Bon Jovi and Def Leppard were kind of one and the same in terms of at least the fan base. I mean, obviously different styles and things like that, but Jon Bon Jovi managed to stand out with a little more, or I should say a lot more credibility than, and there's a place for those bands. Like, look, I everybody knows I'm a 90s rock guy, but like people love the Poison and the glam rock and all of that. But in the midst of that, Bon Jovi carved out its own niche, or Jon Bon Jovi, and He's one of those guys. Ready for this? On Jon Bon Jovi, just himself. Women want to be with him. Dudes want to be like him.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
he managed to accomplish that, like the quintessential sex symbol, rock star, and they can still, or Jon Bon Jovi can still fill a stadium to this day. All right, so he's 14. I get number 13. And with that one, I'm going to go with the lead singer of the Who, Roger freaking Daltry. And I think Roger Daltry, he set a template for a lot of what was to come. Obviously, the Who was 70s and the 80s, but there's no doubt that bands like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden had some Roger Daltrey in them, and the quintessential scream of "Won't Get Fooled Again," just to kind of step out of the piece of music that's in front of them and just go crazy with that. So I think that Roger Daltrey with the screaming and just being pure rock with the Who, that there was a gap between bands like the Who and then, as I mentioned, the glam bands, and then back to the rock and the Seattle sound in the 90s. But I do believe that in a very quiet way, or maybe uncredited way in a lot of ways, Roger Daltrey set the template for a bunch of lead singers in the 90s. And again, a great arena rock sound from Roger Daltrey. Like, you don't need Roger Daltrey in at the Metro in Chicago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like he needs his voice. Right, his voice fills it up for 20,000 people. That does not need to be in a piano bar. So I got Roger Daltrey at 13.
You know what? I mean, if you think about it, the band The Who themselves, it's incredibly hard to stand out with three other amazing musicians who have amazing big personalities themselves. I mean, you got Pete Townsend, you got Keith Moon, the crazy drummer. I mean, those personalities alone, for Roger Daltrey to stick out, speaks volumes. And I think Roger Daltrey is the ultimate cool, laid-back rock singer. You know, he's front man, but he also blended in with his band. And I think his ultimate transformation, if you look at the early songs like Can't Explain, he's this mod rocker, you know, kind of nerdy, kind of geeky, into this arena rock god, spinning the wired microphone around like a magic wand, placing, as you said, the intense screams in the right parts of songs just to create that emotion, as he did in Won't Get Fooled Again. I mean, again, it's incredibly hard to stand out with all those, but Roger Daltrey did it. And you know what? He is an ultimate rock god and should be on this list. All right, we're going to look at number 12, and we're going to move into AC/DC's lead singer. Now, this is a double because they had two phenomenal rock singers, and that is Bon Scott and Brian Johnson. When I think of Bon Scott, I think of Party Man, and I think of mischievous. Nothing ever evil, just mischievous. And I think
high voltage.
Yeah, I think of rocking tunes and him just wailing with a hint of his Scottish accent, if you can hear it. They released a number of albums before he passed away in 1980. But, I mean, classics like Dirty Deeds, TNT, awesome rock and roll classics that you still hear to this day and never get tired of. And I think when they hired Johnson, I think they hired him initially because he sounded so much like Bon with his energy. And as you can see, I mean, they did very well after Bon, because initially AC/DC was considering just retiring that whole band, but thank goodness they picked up Johnson, and then they went into like other great tunes.
Shook Me All Night Long.
It Shook Me All Night Long. His voice carried on the band without a hitch. So you got to give it to both of those guys. Bon Scott for creating that delivery, and then Brian Johnson for just carrying it through when Bon, and passing the torch after Bon passed away.
It's a good point, man. And I think about it, it's got to be the smoothest lead singer transition of all time, because it is rare. Like, you could replace your drummer, you could replace your bass guitar. You can't. It's hard to replace the lead singer. And if anything, the band it got more commercially successful. Let the record show. One of the first cassettes that I ever received was for Christmas. It was the Von Scott version, AC/DC, Dirty Deeds and the Dunder Cheap, which was just gold. Dirty Deeds and the Dunder Cheap. It was just gold to me. And,
are you saying Von Scott or Bon? His name is Bon.
Oh, yeah. Bon, sorry. I think I did say Von. Here we go again.
If it's not sports, it's not correct.
Yeah,
right?
Bon Scott. Yeah, you're right.
Do you have to redo all that, or
no? Okay, we can keep rolling. I'll accept I'll let the world know my mistake. I'll disagree a little bit with you though. I think that Bon Scott, and I still can't get it out of me. And Brian Johnson have very different styles. Like I thought Scott was more of this sort of like sorcerer sound, like evil, evil sound to him. Well, Brian Johnson was just like fuck you, kick you in the balls, back in black. Let's have a good time, rock and roll, dude. And actually that's AC/DC in general. But I know that we're focusing on the lead singers. But yeah, both of these guys were great. It's hard. I'll say I think I do like Bon Scott's sound a little bit better than that of Brian Johnson's, but it's only by a hair, and it's just those two are great, and I'm glad that we got more AC/DC after the unfortunate, untimely passing of, I'll just call him Mr. Scott for now on.
So what are we? What number was that?
That was 12. That was 12. So we've got
go through.
Sure. 15, we had Dave Grohl. 14, Bon Jovi. 13, Roger Daltry. You just picked at number 12, AC/DC's Von Scott and Brian Johnson. So I get number 11, and I am going to go with, I'm going to go with Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison, lead singer of The Doors. And I'll say this about Jim Morrison, although I'm selecting him 11th for our collective list. I think he might be the most rock star of rock stars on this entire list because, again, not necessarily the most melodious singer. I don't know that you would say he was a pure talent, but those tribal screams that he missed in, the mystery behind Jim Morrison, the feeling that you never really knew him, the break on through sort of attitude of his, the natural passion, and then again, influential with guys, in now, and it's okay to scream and just make sounds the way Jim Morrison did. And I hate to say something like this. Yeah. It doesn't hurt that he died early in terms of his legacy, like in terms of the way we all revere him and think about him. And he never had a chance to be bad. Yeah. So I got Jim Morrison at number 11.
You know what? As you said, I think he had all the traits of a classic rock and roll lead singer, the not give a shit attitude. But if I really think about Jim Morrison, I think he really wanted to be a serious artist, like a poet, something of that nature, right. And wanted his art and film and all that to be taken seriously. And then he just ended up a rock singer. You know what I'm saying? So he just kind of
he was a poet. I mean, he considered himself a poet.
So he just kind of bumbled and stumbled and just kind of whatever came at him. That's what he did. And it's almost like he had contempt for being a rock singer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the anti-rock star.
The anti-rock star. And, I dug that he crooned most of his songs. I mean, just a step away from like a Frank Sinatra. I mean, it's like, come on, touch me, babe. It's like, hey, hey. And then,
it's very Las Vegas, isn't it? I never thought about that.
And then, of course, then he had some songs where he was doing, as you said, the spastic screaming. So, Jim Morrison, as you said, it didn't hurt that he did die young, but man, he lived a lot of years in his 27 years. I mean, yeah. And those leather pants, I
feel like that's all we really needed out of him was 27 years.
27 years, yeah. And I used to like how he never changed his leather pants. Like they were just like, I heard rumors about that. Like, he's just,
he probably had awful BO.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Just not caring.
Unkept, unshowered. Yeah. And it all worked somehow.
I guess
he got away with it.
Yeah, as long as you don't
have
to
be a millionaire.
Yep.
In a tub with flowers in it.
All right, man. That's Jim Morrison. 11. I am at number 11. All right, number 10. We are going to go to number 10, and I'm going to say Axel Rose.
All right.
Axel Rose, probably a classic narcissist. Just from everything that I've read about him, that you've seen about him. But you cannot deny his ability to wail and screech a rock song. And you can't doubt his ability one single bit. In fact, he doesn't even doubt his ability one single bit as a classic narcissist. And If anything, Axl Rose, whenever I see him, he just screams extreme confidence when he's belting out those songs and his ability to carry a song, whether it's Welcome to the Jungle or something as smooth as Patience. He's just the classic lead singer, and I think we probably would have heard more of him, if the alternative rock grunge of the early 90s didn't come and like stifle some of those classic rock band sounds. And it just kind of snuck up on him, and it moved rock and roll into a different direction. So, but I think we would have probably heard a lot more from Axl Rose if, Guns N' Roses would have started out a little bit earlier.
Well, I one of the notes that I put down about Axl Rose is important because Kurt Cobain does get, deservedly so, a ton of credit for changing the face of rock and roll and getting us out of the glam rock 80s, which was like once those first few notes of Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, it was over for all those bands. But before Kurt Cobain, in the late 80s, there was Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses, and they brought back a pure guitar rock sound that wasn't grunge, but it was pure, and it was very different from what was going on. That classic high octave sound that, and you could, he was a singer, man. Like he was, like I talk about, like Jim Morrison, we talk about, like, I don't know how great of a pure singer he was. Axl Rose was a singer, man. It's hard sometimes to get through it, but he looked like rock. And sometimes I say, like, they were a better, tighter, more musical AC/DC. Like that's what I looked at Guns N' Roses as. And yeah, he was a great showman and a super talent. And, they were able to, they weren't as big as the grunge bands, but they survived alongside those guys. They were not shoved off to the side. There was more, and they're still very much wanted today. So I got a lot of time for Axl Rose, and that's a good spot there at number 9, buddy.
All right. So that is number 9. And I think you got the next one, sir.
Yeah, baby. Okay. Let's see what we're going here. Number 8. We're getting into it here now. I'm going to go with number 8. I'm going to go with the combination, the Beatles combo of John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Simply two of the greatest songwriters of all time. They were the masters of the simple melody and making it sound great. Simple, yet it didn't necessarily sound simple, or you didn't care that it was simple because the melody was so perfect. So, and sometimes that's okay, to where it's so sugary sounding that it's beautiful to your ears, but there was a technical aspect to it that made it better than like because sometimes they're considered a boy band, like an old school boy band, but they were a lot deeper than that. They were also, I'll say this too, I mean, I don't know that there's ever been a band like that where we can probably make a list of, co-lead singers and bands. I don't know how big it would be, but these guys would be at the top of it as well because they had perfect balance. It seemed like they kind of split. It was almost felt 50-50 in terms of how many songs were for each. I don't know the breakdown. I would guess that McCartney probably led more of them, but it just was a perfect balance until it wasn't anymore. So I'm going to put the Beatles at number 8 and John Lennon and Paul McCartney.
Researching some of this stuff, I found out that, Lennon, the Twist and Shout song, which, was one of their big breakout hits early in their career, that Lennon's voice was basically just shredded from, doing concerts and singing and stuff like that. And for the Twist and Shout recording, he gargled milk, took some lozenges, and then belted out Twist and Shout.
It's actually lozenges. There's a little R in there. Lozenges. Yeah, say lozenges. Yeah.
So I've always been kind of pro Lennon for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I don't mind McCartney. I think he's a great songwriter, but even Lennon would say that some of McCartney's stuff is kind of hokey.
He's the more pop-minded of the two.
Yeah, like, you know, what was Lennon taught? Lennon said something about Paul McCartney's Obla Di, Obla Da, the life goes on. So he's like, he called that granny shit. And honestly, my most least favorite Beatles like song that was basically pretty famous is Penny Lane. I can't stand Penny Lane. I can't. Penny Lane. Oh, dude, just don't, please
You're
stop.
Hilarious. Yeah.
Please stop. I mean, Helter Skelter, Paul McCartney lead singing on that. Great. But but even, I mean, Revolution, Lennon sang that, awesome. So, yeah, I mean, both powerful, lead singers in their own right. I'm just leaning more towards Lennon. I don't know how you feel about that.
I actually lean more towards McCartney. I guess I don't try to, I think that a lot of, I bet more of the pure Beatles fans would agree with you. It's John Lennon because he was more, it just felt like there was a realness to him. Yeah. There was a love child to him. I mean, the Yoko Ono thing, you could just see him laying in a bed of flowers, staring at the sky, smoking weed. And, Paul McCartney was more, let's make a hit song. Let's make a number one. So I don't know. I like the showmanship better. Like I like rock stars that like being rock stars. I always felt like John Lennon felt he was a little bit too above it. Kind of like you were saying earlier, the anti-rock star with Jim Morrison. I like guys who have a joy about it, and Paul McCartney seemed to have more of that, even to this day. Like, he enjoys being a rock star, and that comes out in his whole overall performance. Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe that he's still answering Beatle questions. I mean, I would be like I know that is him, but it's just like, could you imagine being asked about, something you did in Springfield over and over and over again? If it made me a billionaire and a sir, I'd probably be okay with it.
All right.
If I was a sir, hey, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sir.
Yeah, I think I'd overcome. Is that a Beatles song? We Shall Overcome?
No.
Is that a Beatles song? No? Who sang that? We Shall Overcome? Are you sure? I thought that was a Beatles song. No?
No.
Okay. Bears. All right. I did that one. So good luck. Good luck with number 7, pal. What you got?
All right. Number 7.
Hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is starting to get a little difficult.
I love this list, by the way. This is fun.
All right. We'll go with, you said number 7, right?
Yeah, number 7, my man.
All right. I'm going to say number 7, Steve Perry, lead singer of Journey. Okay. Cool. I love Steve Perry. I mean, there are a lot of people that maybe can't handle his voice, but I gotta say, his vocal range, the soul and power of Steve Perry is unmatched. I mean, Journey really wasn't doing much until they found Steve Perry. I mean, they were a band before Steve Perry, and then he came on the scene, and then you got hits like Lights, Don't Stop Believing, Faithfully, Wheels. I mean, should I go on? I mean, every one of those is a massive hit. They sold out arenas. And, I mean, he is the quintessential talented, great singer, great, phenomenal, powerful singer, as are some of the other guys on here. I mean, the rock star ability, but no. Steve Perry came out, grabbed his mic, slayed, and left. That's how Steve Perry did it.
Yeah, man. I would say this. I'll just give you a little clue on my list. He's not my number 1, but I will say this: he's the best pure singer on this list. I think he's the most talented singer, and he could hold the note, the high note, the higher octave, whatever you call that. He could do it. Like some of the music was, some of those ballads were a little cheesy, but my God, did he belt them out, and my God, were they huge hits. And I do wonder, you're talking about his rock ability and his ability to be like an actual rock star. You're right, it wasn't there. I do wonder though what he would have been like if he was in a more pure rock band, because he could have been any genre of music. Like, he could have done that, and I do wonder if the credibility would be higher for him if he had been in a band like that. And I'll close it by saying this, and I think I told you this off the air, that it was Freddie Mercury who was once asked, "Hey, Freddie Mercury, what you're the best friggin' lead singer in the world, man. You got the best voice. And he goes, what do you think about that? And he said something to the effect of, I don't know, ask Steve Perry, because he thought Steve Perry was the best.
Absolutely.
And, I would say, like, a lot of people, wouldn't necessarily think of Steve Perry like that, just because of the cheeseball factor that goes along with Journey and all that, at least the perception. But Steve Perry, numero 7 is a very good place for him.
They had some good rock tunes, though. When Steve Perry first came on the scene, and then of course once they went into the '80s and did a lot of those ballads, like a lot
they
of
figured it out.
Yeah, like a lot of rock bands did. I mean,
man.
Foreigner did that. All those.
Yeah, well, think about Chicago, man. Chicago goes from like this, all these instant trumpets and saxophones to just Peter Cetera sitting there making these songs where he's crying in the middle of them.
Exactly.
Like that. The money was in the ballads. It really was.
It was. Absolutely. All right, that was mine, Steve Perry. All right, you're next.
Okay. Let's see here. It's number 7, right? Okay. Mccar. All right, number 6. I am going to go with the lead singer of U2, and his name is Bono. I would say that Bono is the most dramatic lead singer on this list. There was with the shade, the omnipresent shades.
Well, he has glaucoma.
Oh, he does?
Sorry.
I didn't know that. Jesus Christ.
Sorry.
All right, so the omnipresent glaucoma shades, a terrific, like you could tell, like, especially like on some of the tours that they did. I think it was the Zoo TV tour where they were just making fun of pop culture.
Yeah.
Like he understands the drama of it all, and it blatantly puts it out there, and he doesn't mind doing it. There's that militaristic tone to some of the early U2 stuff that got us all like, and you talk about, they might be the best of the arena rock bands. Like, they might be the best ever, just in terms of that. We're all in this together. Like that's what Bono was great at. Like this, hey, we're all here for a cause. No, who knows what the hell the cause was, but it always felt like Bono feels very purposeful, even if it's disingenuous in some ways. And also, we talk about ballads, and like that's where the moneymaker is. He made ballads that you didn't feel stupid for blasting and liking. Like, still haven't found what I'm looking for. That's a ballad, man. That's a cheesy ballad that made you feel cool.
Or what's the other one? With or
there's
Without
a few.
You. With or Without
Yes,
You?
With or Without You, even a better example.
Yeah.
And like, you didn't mind blasting that or admitting, I love this, or requesting it and playing it at, putting it in the jukebox and listening to it and say, yeah, man, I still haven't found what it looked like. It felt like he made the ballad sound okay and justified.
Yeah, Bono, a couple of things stick out to me. Spiritually intense. Sings with his entire body, his soul, his being.
You're getting deep, man. His whole body.
You can definitely see the maturity take place from when he first started with U2, when they were like doing walk away, walk away, walk away, walk away.
I love that shit. I love that.
And then, of course, they gradually grew into the Joshua Tree, and then went into the Zooropa era, and then, moving on and on. I heard that, I've never been to a U2 concert, but I've heard that being...
Find my wild horses? Thank you.
I've heard that being at a U2 concert is kind of like the same feeling you experience, when you go to an evangelical church.
Oh, dude, I've been.
A feeling of leaving it uplifted. Yeah. You're leaving the show uplifted, and it's just
drunk.
Yeah, and drunk, and led by this powerful spiritual rock and roll leader.
It is. It's an experience. I went. My boy Fez about 15 years ago went, and it was like that. It was like that.
Yeah, I did. I remember I was in local radio, and I was working with. This guy, and he worked at a record store, and the record store sponsored like 2 or 4 hours of radio time. And whenever they would have like a big release of a rock and roll song, we would do like a record release party at the store, and then we would broadcast from the radio station and play like the the song that was, or the album that was going to be released. So one of them I think it was Zooropa by U2. So we at midnight they did like a sell, of the record, and everybody was joining everybody at the record store. But back at the station, we got to play all the new Zooropa tunes. And I'll never forget when I first, because we played each song, each cut off there, and one that always stuck with me was that Numb song. Remember Numb? I feel numb. No,
yeah.
Yeah. I feel numb. It's like the Edge just like sitting there like, chanting, and then all of a sudden you hear Bono. I feel numb. Oh, the other one was Lemon. Lemon.
Yeah. Yep.
Jeez, so but
just gorgeous.
That's
just gorgeous.
Yeah. Bono is he's Bono. And don't forget.
Okay.
I mean, as we talked about in the Christmas show, when they did the "It's a night, thank God is them." Yeah, power when needed.
Yeah, power. The power of Bono. You want me to give you a quick rundown?
Please
okay.
do.
15, Dave Grohl. 14, Bon Jovi. 13, Roger Daltry. 12, Bon Scott / Brian Johnson. 11, Jim Morrison. 10, Axel Rose. 9, Lennon McCartney. 8, Steve Perry. 7, Bono.
Number 6. If you ever need to have the hair on the back of your neck stand up, just play any song by Chris Cornell. From Hunger Strike, The Black Hole Sun, Spoon Man, on, power and intensity. It's just enveloped with a beautiful tone. That is Chris Cornell. Anytime you hear Chris Cornell, you know it's Chris Cornell. He had such an outstanding voice, and I'm so sad that he is no longer with us, because I will say, as he would have gotten older, he would have branched off and probably done a ton of different things with either different bands or acoustically or by himself, and he would have done such a good job and definitely would have had his fan base. And I think that it's just tragic that his life was cut short by taking his own life. So Chris Cornell, a huge part of the Seattle movement, along with Nirvana and Pearl Jam, bringing that style of music to the forefront. But it was more than that. I mean, it was just really good rock and roll, and Soundgarden had the intensity that you were really looking for when you really just wanted to get down and dirty and into some rock and roll. That was Soundgarden and their lead singer, Chris Cornell. I'm sure you could add a lot more to this because you were a huge fan of these earlier bands. So go ahead, Mark, and start us off.
Yeah, legit 4-octave singer. I always like to refer to him as a wailer. I mean, he could wail those tones out or those notes out better than anybody. He was highly successful solo, highly successful with Soundgarden. Then he started Audioslave. He did some duets, as you mentioned, the one with Eddie Vedder, Hunger Strike, and all of that. He made, because early Soundgarden, man, with Outshined and Rusty Cage and those, so that's heavy metal. I mean, and they made heavy metal musical and complicated and just unfucking believable. So the voice, there's no better voice in rock than Chris Cornell. And I will never forget, I think it was 91, I'm at Illinois State. I go to Braden Auditorium to see Skid Row. Skid Row is the band that I'm going to see. I'm sitting in the second row with my friend Lori Claster. We're second row, and we're there for Sebastian and Skid. I wasn't really into Skid Row, but I was like, yeah, I'm down with it. Uh-huh. And the opening band was fucking Soundgarden. And I didn't know anything about him. I'll never forget, the announcer comes out and I said, before we bring out Skid Row, here's 4 fuckers from Seattle, Soundgarden. And they come out and they just start wailing, and I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Mm-hmm. And I was entranced, and they won me over that night. So love Chris Cornell, love all his projects, and number 6 it is for Chris Cornell.
All right.
Let Me Put a List Together is brought to you by This episode is brought to you by Vistaprint. You know when you give someone a gift that's so thoughtful they couldn't possibly part with it? This season, celebrate your favorite people by giving them something only they could get. At Vistaprint, capture that epic girls' weekend in a calendar for your besties. Or send everyone a gorgeous holiday card with your family making not-so-gorgeous faces. Make something just for them at Vistaprint.com/podcast and make it unregiftable.
What if wearing underwear could feel better than going commando? Like if the waistband didn't roll or dig, and the fabric made you sweat less, and the whole thing moved with you, never against you. At Mack Weldon, we're reinventing men's basics, starting with your underwear. Introducing AirKnit X, our lightest, most breathable technology, engineered with 4-way stretch. If you don't love your first pair, it's free. So try one today at MackWeldon.com.
And now, back to Let Me Put a List Together on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
So we're moving on into the top 5. Mark, you have number 5, so what do you got?
Okay. Got to see what's left. I'm going to go with number 5. I'm going to go with the great Freddie Mercury, lead singer of Queen. Unbelievable range, one of the great showmen of all time. Freddie Mercury was unbelievable, or one of the best at getting the crowd involved in his songs. I probably would not have a problem saying that he's the most talented guy on this list in terms of all that he did musically. And I will tell you this, too. There are many people. We've got him at number 5 here on the collective list, and we'll reveal our individual list in just a little bit. But many consider Freddie Mercury to be the greatest lead singer of all time. And he was eclectic. He was weird. He was bizarre. You didn't know, like, his sexuality was up for grabs for a while. So he was everything, like wearing costumes and just out there as a lead singer in every single way that you wanted lead singer to be. Like, Freddie Mercury encompassed it all, probably more than anybody. When you like talk about all of the things that a rock star is, like the way they dress, the way they sound, the way they interact with the crowd, the joy of doing the job, the ego, all of it. That's Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, I mean, all you have to do is look at the amazing footage of Live Aid to see the power of frontman Freddie Mercury. As you said, he had the people eating out of the palm of his hand. And I mean,
yeah.
All of the songs were also very arena-based, similar to Jon Bon Jovi. I mean, We Are the Champions, Radio Gaga, all those songs were anthems, exactly. And people loved that. It was emotion. It was drama. I mean, it was almost like a stage play. He was almost like an actor, an incredible talent, just conveying every emotion that you can through singing. That was Freddie Mercury. And I am 100% behind what you were saying earlier. I think 5 is a little low for Freddie Mercury, but I will have to take that in stride.
Acquiesce, Brian. That's the word you're looking for. Acquiesce.
Thank you very little.
All right, buddy.
So that was number 5, Freddie Mercury, as we move into number 4. I am going to say that number 4 is going to be Kurt Cobain. Number 4 would be Kurt Cobain. This man not only had amazing power and a passionate rock voice that basically moved a generation into his whole scene. Kurt Cobain was just an amazing songwriter. Great lyrics sent to simple melodies with intense guitars and drums. He was the anti-rocker, the anti-pop hero, and just an amazing leader of his band. I mean, you can't deny his ability to sing a song, whether it's something as intense as, Smells Like Teen Spirit, or it's just something as smooth as their Unplugged that they did with MTV, which I would say is the greatest Unplugged MTV ever. I mean, that whole album just by itself is an amazing piece of art right there. And the man behind that, Kurt Cobain, the lead singer, just tortured and really just I would have to say, and I know it sounds cheesy, probably the voice of that generation, and that's a lot to carry and should be recognized.
Yeah, and as you called, I think it was you referred to Jim Morrison as the anti-rock star. Same with Kurt Cobain. Now, make no mistake about it, this dude was a fucking rock star, but he did not necessarily want that. He had the ability to scream in tune. Like, that's what he did. He would scream, yet it sounded good. And you mentioned the Unplugged. Go back, like, if you're listening right now, go back and Google, where did you sleep last night from that? Oh, my God. Like, that was the passion in that song, the believability of the angst that he clearly had. Like, it felt like everything he did was genuine. When he's saying he felt it, it wasn't just doing it because he had to do it because he got paid to do it. Like, he felt all that. And he is, like, he's in the top 5 most important rock stars of all time because, again, he was a game changer. Like, once that song came out, like when Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, and those beginning riffs by Dave Grohl on the drums, and they come in and they just fucking kill everybody. Everybody took note. Everybody knew where they were, and everybody was just like, "Oh my God, what is like?" There was never a sound like that.
No, and not only that, but when you have kids like me that were. They listen to some pop music, but I was, as I said, and most people know that listen to our podcast, I was really into hip hop at that time and into Public Enemy and stuff like that. But when you make a kid like that go and buy the cassette single because you love the drums and the intensity and the angst and the anger of that song, you really got some magic going on there. And I mean, I would say that did lead me into that genre. So,
I was gonna say, didn't most of hip hop and the stuff that you listen to? Didn't a lot of people dig that Nirvana and
absolutely, because it was I mean, I couldn't stand and still to this day, I couldn't stand that late 80s hairband stuff.
Right.
I mean, it was like, they had the one rock song, and then the second song was always a ballad, and it was just
Cinderella.
oh God, I just couldn't I just couldn't get with it. There was just nothing cool about it to me, and then you had some guys that came out there and, they're in their flannels. They don't give a crap. Their hair is dirty. It's nasty. And they smell and it's angst. And it's that's what I feel. I don't feel
man.
This party.
It's our generation, bub.
Oh God, please stop. Couldn't deal. It had no soul to it. Had no realness to it. I mean, it was pop music. That's basically what it was.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Amen, bro.
That's my opinion. I know a lot of people tie in a lot of good memories to those songs, I get it, and that's probably why they like it. But that was just.
I actually like it. I actually like it better now than I
do.
That.
I will say that as well. Like looking back at some of those songs, it's funny to me.
Yeah, it's fun. It is fun music.
Yeah.
Then it wasn't funny because that's what we had.
That was your badge of honor. What you listened to.
It's like no. I don't want this.
Yeah,
I don't want that.
It's like that's what was fun about music back then is that you had your pop stuff, but you could go to a record store and dig and find the alternative to the alternative and find different sounds and what people were doing, the stuff that was bubbling under. And even back then, I mean, there were groups that were, in the 90s that were bubbling under, like you had the Red Hot Chili Peppers and you had like Mudhoney and all of those bands that were, slowly but surely coming up. And it was just fun to listen to that different style of music.
Okay, that is number 4 by my calculation. Mm-hmm. So I am going to get us into our top 3. Right. And with number 3, this is going to surprise you, but I am going to go with Eddie Vedder at number 3. Eddie Vedder is my choice. And look, Eddie Vedder is he's the lead singer of my favorite band of all time, Pearl Jam. And man, that big badass baritone and like I mentioned, Jim Morrison in conjunction with the tribal tones and the natural screaming, wailing, and the versatility of his voice, and you could just feel it. Like some of the especially some of the early lyrics and singing about his dad and his childhood, and like even though I couldn't relate to exactly what he was singing, I felt it though. You know what I mean? I felt it. All of a sudden, I felt like my father abandoned me. I'm like, oh my God, is that what happened? I'm feeling this angst right now.
No, you're
yeah.
Your father is one of the sweetest men ever.
I'm well covered. I'm very well covered when it comes to family and parents. But I kind of like, oh yeah, man, I feel that angst, buddy. Oh yeah, it's been a rough childhood for me too, growing up in the western suburbs. I feel you, man. Yep, my parents covered my college. That's right. But I feel your angst, buddy. You know, I didn't know how to read or write or anything like that. So, and he did, like, he did open me up in terms of, like, feeling something, like, feeling a passion, and, that's what Eddie Vedder did, and that, quintessential sound. So, I could go on forever, but I won't. I will leave Eddie Vedder at number 3 right there.
Yeah, that you're seriously iconic when you're one of the most imitated rock styles in the last 30 years.
Copied, too.
Copied. That is the backstory of Eddie Vedder. He is probably one of the most imitated rock sounds. And his story is so bizarre. I mean, just talk about right place at the right time. I mean, he's working at a gas station. Then he gets a tape from his buddy. He sends in 3 songs to this band from Seattle. And now he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, and not only that, but if you've ever seen Pearl Jam live, I mean, I saw them in the later years. I'm sure you've seen them in the early years and throughout their career. But if you see early footage, I mean, he's like climbing around like Spider-Man on the light scaffolding, and he's jumping into the audience. And, it was the early 90s. It was rock and roll, and everybody was sitting in their bedroom singing the song Alive. So, I mean, he's another one that, got this kid that was into a certain style of music and got him back into rock and roll and things of that. Pearl Jam, another huge band that had an influence on me and, in moving into that genre. So just credible, real, it was Pearl Jam. It is Pearl Jam. So,
amen. Yeah, it is. Yep. And you and I got to share a show together, which was awesome.
Yeah, which was fun, which was great. Yeah. And I will say that, even at this age, they still did a phenomenal job. And they still
sure
rock
did.
Like no other. So,
as my friend, another friend of mine, Kim, who I went to a Pearl Jam concert with, said, and it was the first one that she had ever gone to, she put it well. She's like, this guy never misses a note. He never misses a fucking note, and that's hard to do. So, all right. So that's Eddie Vedder at number 3. You have the pressure to choose number 2, my guy.
All right. So number 2. Wow, I have to. Now this is one of the ones that I have to go through. Okay. I got who we're looking at. All right. Who do I have? Oh, number 2, I will say Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger has a lot of history behind him, and he is listed, of course, as one of the most iconic songwriting duos of him and Keith Richards. And he's got a cool voice, and it's a very distinct Mick Jagger. I mean, he is the Rolling Stones. He is the voice of the Rolling Stones. No one else in that band sang except Mick Jagger. Thing about Mick Jagger, though, is, as much as he's iconic as part of the Rolling Stones, I think he's just goofy. I mean, seriously.
Wait, hold on a second. Before you go on, I have to tell you, let me just give you one of my little bullet points. Weird looking.
Yeah. He's just goofy.
He is goofy.
He learned to dance from Tina Turner.
Oh, really?
And he just looks goofy when he's singing and dancing. I mean, if you look at Start Me Up, look at the faces that they're making into the camera. It's like
he's the drunk guy on the wedding floor who just does everything.
Does everything exactly. And I do dig his falsetto, in like Emotional Rescue, and I do dig a number of the Rolling Stones songs, and that's just what it is. But I just think that there was a show called The Tammy Show. And it was where they put a whole bunch of rock stars on stage in the early 60s. And I remember James Brown was actually on that show. and he tore the stage up with his dancing and all this. And the next band to go on, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah.
And the Rolling Stones were like, what do we do? So all of a sudden, like, Mick just starts jumping around, like, all crazy, because he didn't want to just stand there and sing. So he's doing all these weird, jumps and stands and stuff, because he didn't know what else to do. I don't think he was, doing his Tina Turner moves yet. But, Mick Jagger, I mean, I go for longevity. I mean, he's been around forever. He's just your classic rock and roll lead singer. That's where I'll end it with that.
He was in complete control of the stage, or is still, like no other rock singer. Like he probably has more steps on that stage. Like if he tracks steps, there's got to be 25,000 steps per show. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of the same things you said. The moves, the weird goofy, the goofiness that goes along with him. The greatest collection of rock songs though ever, probably from Mick Jagger and that entire band. There's not much more I can say. But I will say this too. This so funny you brought up the James Brown thing. I literally just finished watching a James Brown biography last night, and that was one of the parts that they made a big deal out of. And it was like James Brown was kind of poo-pooing the Rolling Stones. He was just kind of like, Rolling Stones, and that's another guy, man. That's another whole genre. But James Brown, my God, that you talk about influence. He influenced everything that you see to this day. So unbelievable. All right, well, I am very honored to get to present our collective list, and then we'll do our individual list here in just a second, which I'm really looking forward to. But what is left on the list here that we did not choose yet would be Mr. Robert Plant, the lead singer of Led Zeppelin. Again, undeniable. He had, I think, the most seductive style of anybody in the way he dressed and acted and interacted with the crowd up there. He can leave you breathless up there. He can go from like like you think about Stairway to Heaven. You think about Stairway to Heaven, which I know is like the most overplayed song in rock history, but going from like that sort of lullaby style in the beginning and then just fucking rocking out at the end of the song like that, and that's what makes it so great. He was able to kind of do two songs in one, often, big time sex symbol, all of that, all the rock star qualities, the ability to scream in tone and in melody and in the word I'm looking for, in tune, like some of the other guys on this list. So the Robert Plant, one of the greats of all time for sure.
Yeah, several things stick out to me about Robert Plant, and that would be the first, charisma. There was always a hint of danger with Robert Plant. Of course, he had crazy sex appeal, wide vocal range, can rock hard, can rock soft. And I think it would be safe to say that out of all the lead singers, Robert Plant had the ability to put a spell on you through the speakers. Seriously. I think his just the storytelling and the way that he's, sang the songs, absolutely, spellbinding. Another funny backstory about how Robert Plant came to be the lead singer of Led Zeppelin. Jimmy Page was starting a band called the New Yardbirds, and the first guy that he wanted he didn't want to be a part of it. And then he saw this guy, Robert Plant, and he saw him perform. And every time he kept an eye on Robert Plant because he thought something was wrong with him because he couldn't believe that Robert Plant wasn't farther along in his career because he was just amazing. He couldn't believe that he wasn't picked up by a rock band and was already a superstar. So he actually thought there was like something wrong with him. So we would just kind of keep an eye on Robert Plant. And then finally he was like, all right, I got to bring this guy on board, and found out there was nothing wrong with him. It's just no one ever picked him up. Can you imagine that? The greatest, one of the greatest rock singers of all time almost didn't get picked up by Jimmy Page. And, they also took time to, build their relationship and found out that they were very much into the same music, very on the same page. And that is how you got one of the greatest rock bands of all time, Led Zeppelin. So, yes, Robert Plant, even went beyond Led Zeppelin, did some of his solo stuff, which I totally dig as well. So, yeah, I would say that this, if I can't have Freddie Mercury, this is probably the next best person to be number one on this list.
Get in touch with the show through email at lists@podcastentertainment.com.
Why would an oil and gas company tie executives' pay to lowering the carbon emissions intensity of their operations? Because we believe in actions, not just words. Learn more at chevron.com/lower carbon.
To show you how easy it is to file a claim with Geico, we hired a Shakespearean actor.
Oh, woe is me. Wherefore art thy claims help when I hadst a fender bender?
Pardon the interruption, but when you file a claim with Geico, your claims team will be in touch right away.
But willest they forget about me later when thou needest updates?
No. They'll always be there to, helpeth you out.
Well, I suppose that I should bemoan something else, like my lactose intolerance. Oh, whyest must dairy disagree with me so savagely?
Geico. Great service without all the drama.
And now, back to Let Me Put a List Together on the Podcast Entertainment Network.
Well, it sounds like somebody just gave away their number one on their individual list. You want to give the rest? You want to give the rest of yours now that we know Freddie Mercury is your number one?
Thanks for ruining that. So my first is number 15, Jon Bon Jovi. Number 14, Bon Scott, Brian Johnson. Number 13, Lennon and McCartney. Number 12, Axel Rose. Number 11, Dave Grohl. Number 10, Steve Perry. Number 9, Jim Morrison. Number 8, Roger Daltry. Number 7, Kurt Cobain. Number 6, Chris Cornell. Number 5, Eddie Vedder. Number 4, Bono. Number 3, Mick Jagger. Number 2, Robert Plant. And number 1, the incomparable Freddie Mercury.
Nice. Great list. I, at number 15, had Dave Grohl. 14, Jon Bon Jovi. 13, Roger Daltry. Jim Morrison had number 12. The combo of Lennon and McCartney at 11. Bono at number 10. Number 9, Steve Perry. 8, the combo of Bon Scott and Brian Johnson. 7, Freddie Mercury. 6, Axl Rose. 5, Eddie Vedder. Turning the page. 4, Mick Jagger. 3, Robert Plant. 2, Kurt Cobain. And number 1, I had Chris Cornell. I also have, Brian, a few honorable mentions, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I'm going to fire out some of these. James Hetfield of Metallica, I would put there. Lane Staley, Alice in Chains, The Great Late. Maynard James Keenan of Tool. Jonathan Davis of Korn. Steven Tyler, Aerosmith.
Absolutely.
And and then there's one, I don't know, like, I think this is rock, but it can, I don't know what I'm always confused with the Rage Against the Machine genre on Cypress Hill, but Zach De La Rocha, I mean, he definitely is at least honorable mention, and maybe he should be on the list. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough. This is a tough list, folks. Tough list.
It is,
we probably could have 30. We talked off there. We're like, we got to keep this, 15. You know what I mean?
I mean,
so it's tough.
It's almost, and I mean, some of these could be in or out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and you could throw, there a lot are interchangeable. So we did have a lot of people on Facebook chiming in to this. So I'm going to add some of these people. Some other people that we have. And you know what? And again, we had a lot of people that were lead singers in bands, but then they had other lead singers. A perfect example of this, Kathy Collins brings up Stevie Nicks, which, yes, absolutely, Stevie Nicks is a lead singer, but you also had Lindsey Buckingham in there, and some people put Lindsey Buckingham as the lead singer of Fleetwood Mac. And then, Christy McVie was also a huge part of Fleetwood Mac. So they had 3 powerful lead singers, so it wasn't one. But, we had Victor Perez said Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, Steven Tyler. Brian Morse, he said Steve Walsh from Kansas.
Steve Walsh was in Kansas?
Yeah. Also Steve Winwood from the Spencer Davis Group and Traffic. Justin Bickford, Roger Waters from Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, along with David Gilmour, Robert Plant, Freddie Mercury, Steven Tyler. Let's see. Ronnie Dio got a lot. Rob Halford from who was Judas Priest?
Was that like Judas Priest? Yeah.
Eddie Vedder is on this list. Roger Daltrey, Freddie Mercury. Brian Bradshaw, Chris Cornell, and Lou Gramm from Foreigner. All great, all phenomenal. And if the list could be 100, all these guys would be on it. Dave Mitchell, my brother, Tommy Shaw, Steve Perry, Lou Gramm, Ronnie James Dio. And that was just some of the people that were on our list, which we're pretty in tune with that, with just a few that are sticking out, but a lot of Robert Plant in there and a lot of Freddie Mercury. So
yeah, I can see a case for Steven Tyler to have been on our list.
Absolutely. And, it was interesting. Steven Tyler, they had like Aerosmith had the early career. And then, of course, they had all their drug problems and issues, and then came back out with Run DMC when they did that remake of Walk This Way, and that just launched them into their whole second career, which they had some great tunes there as well in the late 80s, early 90s. That was a group that was still relevant throughout the whole grunge era.
Yeah, you're right. Like Janie's Got a Gun and all that stuff.
Was still pretty prominent.
No, you're right. You're right. They remade themselves. Good point.
Yeah, well, you get rid of the drugs and there you go.
I guess. And with that comes some bad songs too, like Pink. Pink. Yeah, they did some bad ones. I got to admit that for sure. Seemed like there was a decent amount of, and you mentioned a bunch of them too. But I felt like Freddie Mercury was a name that I saw more than anybody.
Yeah,
on social media. So
yeah, I was surprised that some of the people that we had on this list were not mentioned a little bit more. Like I saw no Jim Morrison listed. I didn't see Chris Cornell either, or Kurt Cobain. So
it's so funny. Like music is so personal. It's like religion almost. Like you get in fights with it can get ugly. Yeah. Like politics. Like you should. It can be tough. To talk. Like you and I like ripping on the 80s. There's probably somebody listening right now that wants to punch us in the face because we don't like Motley Crue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I like Motley Crue. I don't consider. And you've had lists before. I don't consider Motley Crue as a hair band.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. They kind of were. But the music didn't necessarily say that. They carried themselves differently.
They were a rock band. I would put them.
Okay.
I would put them.
I'll give you that.
I would put a Motley Crue with like a Guns N' Roses.
I don't know if I go there, but I get you.
Yeah, I just think Guns N' Roses were a little bit more dangerous, and I think Motley Crue was a little bit more wild. That's how I see those two.
Yeah, right. I shouldn't put like Motley Crue with Poison. I always do that though. I always make that mistake. But
yeah, I would never put Def Leppard with a Poison or with a Cinderella or with a Warrant or with a
Shout at the Devil and stuff. That was good music.
Yeah,
I mean that.
I'm sure that's not it's probably not one of Gene's favorites. But,
Shout at the Devil.
Yeah.
No, that would not have made it into Gene Grody's house.
No,
trust me.
Probably not. Absolutely. Probably wouldn't have made it into Ann's house either.
My mom had to, when I got a cassette of Huey Lewis and the News, remember the song I Want a New Drug?
Oh, no.
Remember I Want a New Drug? Like she had to cross-check that. She would not but then she listened, this is actually saying like the drugs are bad. Because it was. Like that song is about drugs suck. Mm-hmm. And I Want a New Drug, one that won't make me spit, throw up, and poop,
Yeah.
It's a clean song.
I'm trying to visualize this as Mark has the cassette in the boom box, sitting on his bed, Gene leaning over, hands on hips, going, all right, mister, play that.
No. Yeah. The scenario is almost right, but it was more like this. I got it for Christmas, and I got it from one of my relatives, I think it was an older cousin who got it for me. And I unwrapped the little cassette, and my mom cross-checks it and sees that there's a song called, I think it was called?
Yeah.
No, it was Sports. Sports was the name of the cassette. But yeah, I Want a New Drug, and my mom she's like, I just need to listen to this.
Yeah,
and she's like, okay, well, it's okay. So that's good. That's good parenting right there, ladies and gentlemen.
That is good parenting, but I never had that.
You turned out just fine.
Yeah, my favorite was, listening to, Two Live Crew in the basement, with
oh my God,
on.
Ann allowed that?
No, she didn't even know that was
You're
happening.
Sick.
She didn't even know that was happening. NWA, downstairs
oh my God.
in the
you got to take that to like a hotel and listen to it.
Yeah. I was in the basement in the hotel,
Why is Brian at the Holiday Inn Express? He's listening to music.
He's listening to NWA, but it turned out fine, No problem. Yeah, it was like
too cute.
That was great.
Cute.
Yeah, in the basement with the headphones on. Kind of like how comedians used to listen to comedy records. Back in the day, like Eddie Murphy listening to Richard Pryor on headphones. So your parents won't hear the curse words and stuff.
Yeah,
like
that's a good analogy right there. Good parallel, buddy.
But I was going to church every Sunday. I knew the difference.
I know. Right. You went to confession. Sorry about that. All those nasty things I said about women.
I wasn't saying them. I was, listening to.
You were listening to disrespectful music, though, right?
So, all right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Now I feel.
You feel good about yourself. Yeah. You know what you need to do is tell Ann what you were doing all those years.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Or I will. If you don't, I will.
Please do.
So, Mom, we got to talk.
Yeah. So that's all right. Enough of that. That's going to wrap up our lead singer top 15 list.
Goodbye.
That's it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them on Facebook. If you go, if you want to listen to us, we're on Apple, all the other podcasts. Also, check us out on YouTube. Just put in "Let Me Put a List Together." Subscribe everywhere. Leave a. We have had some really kind comments on our podcast. So
we need more comments, though. Comment.
Yeah.
We want to know whether it's on the podcast or on social media. Let us know what you're thinking. We love your feedback, even if it's constructive criticism.
Yeah, absolutely. For Mark Grody, I'm Brian Mitchell. That is going to wrap up "Let Me Put a List Together," and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Get in touch with the show through email at lists@podcastentertainment.com. Follow Let Me Put a List Together on Twitter @PodEntertain.
Enjoying this podcast? Be sure to check out all the other PEN podcasts by visiting www.podcastentertainment.com.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Let Me Put a List Together.